welcome to Simply Embrace, the Becoming You podcast. Thank you for joining me. I am Brittany, your host, your life speaker, your motivator here to encourage you, but also to encourage myself as we both walk this journey of becoming all that God has called us to be. Yes, in real time, it's happening. And so I just wanted to talk to you on this episode about shrinking back. There becomes a point along our journey where enough is enough. We can no longer shrink back to who God has called us to be. We can't shrink back. We can't go back to our old ways. We can't go back to the old habits, even when it's tempting, even when it's easy. We get to that point, that crossroad where it's like, you have to make a decision. Enough is enough. It gets to a point where the cost of you shrinking back and lowering your value in who God has called you to be will be too expensive. You can't afford to shrink back. You can't afford to not use what He has given you and placed inside your hands. You can no longer decide to do things your own way. You can no longer do things on your own. You have to depend on Him and allow Him to move in however He wants to move in your life, in whatever direction, and to mold you and shape you into who He's called you to be. And so if you're like me and you've peeked out of your shell only to go right back into your shell, but knowing that in that shell, in that place, it's getting uncomfortable, it's getting unpeaceful, you're unsettled, and you know that it's time for you to make a move. It's time to make a decision. It's time for you to decide to step forward and no longer to do things your way, to no longer hold on to the things that you want, but be open to what God has for you and really tap into His will and His plan for your life. It can be more urgent than what you think. It could be more critical, not just for you, but also the lives that you are attached to, the lives that you are assigned to. And so you cannot go back. There is a demand on your life. There may be a season that you walk into or that you may walk into and it's like, no more. There's pressure for you to make the decision. There's pressure for you to no longer stay the same. There's pressure and opportunities presented to you that you have to take. You have to reach out and hold God's hand, even when it may be uncertain, even when you don't know the answers, even though you don't know what you're walking into. It's a faith journey. You know, you're not supposed to know it all, but it's a faith journey for you to step into and for God to lead you into. There was actually a journal entry that I had made a reel about. This was on YouTube, and I think I also posted on Instagram, I believe. But I was talking about how I wrote to God. I couldn't talk. I had COVID, so I couldn't talk. I was so sick. But I was reflecting. I was isolated from everybody, and I was given an opportunity to just sit and really think about where I was in life. And I realized that I wanted more. I realized that there was something off. I realized that I wasn't the person that I knew I could be. I wasn't sure who I was supposed to be or what I was supposed to be doing, but I knew that I needed to get to this honest place with God. And so on that journal entry, I had wrote and I said, God, to make the long story short, I said, God, I need you to show me who I really am and who I am becoming. Who do you want me to be? I release who I am. I release who I think I am. And I accept and I'm open to who you want me to be. Who is Brittany Rivers really? I had already started Simply Embrace, was doing things early on, but not really taking it serious, not really asking God what He wanted to do with the mission. I knew that personally I was trying to figure myself out, figure life out. But I think at that point, I decided to get honest with God and be like, no, now I really want to know. Now I really need to find out. I hit that crossroad where I was no longer satisfied or happy with where I was. I was at the end of myself. I say that so many times, but it's so true. Sometimes we get to a point where we get to the end of who we are, only for God to give us that invitation, that opportunity for Him to show us what is next. It's not an end entirely. It's actually a new beginning found in Him, but it's the end of who we are. And so, on that journey, when you decide to accept that invitation and be like, okay, God, what are you going to show me? There are going to be things that He shows you that you may be like, whoa, is it really going to take all that? Is that really what you want me to do? Is that really who you call me to be? And you have to be willing to accept that and to embrace that and not shrink back from that. There's so many things that I believed that I had in me. I didn't know what it was, or, I didn't take it serious, but I knew that something needed to happen. A change needed to happen within me. A transformation needed to happen. And so I had to accept it. I had to really be genuine with God in my heart, not just in my mind. Decide to do something is one thing, but with your heart, when you're really like, God, I'm serious about this, because He really knows our hearts and our motives. He knows if we're just talking with our lips. He knows if we're really taking Him serious, and if we really mean what we say, if we're really meaning what we pray to Him for. He really knows if we want it or not. For real, for real. And so even on my journey, even now, there's moments where I'm like, I can't go back. I can't shrink back. It's like I've come too far from where I was, but yet I know I have so much more to go. I have more things that you haven't shown me yet. I know that there is more. Even if that more is in the day, we don't know our last breath. We don't know our last day. So literally my more could be an hour from now, but who knows what He wants to do an hour from now. It doesn't matter. We have to be willing not to shrink back from what He has called us to do and who He has called us to become. So I wanted to talk about this because I know for me, I still have moments where it's like, God, what are you doing in me? Like, what is this? I still have those moments. And I just want to say to somebody who has stepped into something completely new. It's a new place God has called you to, and it's causing you to look different. You may be speaking different. You may be perceiving things differently. Life is just different. You have a new set of eyes, a new set of ears. You have new desires that He is cultivating and stirring up in you. And it's like, who is this person? And sometimes you can't even explain it, but the change is taking place. It's almost like that old song that's like, a wonderful change has come over me. It's really like that sometimes. And sometimes whenever we are in that process of transformation, just like a caterpillar who is transforming into a butterfly, I always make reference to the caterpillar and butterfly because that's my thing personally. But, there is that process that he has to go through in that cocoon when a caterpillar is transforming into a butterfly. And he is becoming completely new. Like a new thing is happening. He is about to not look the same. He doesn't operate or function the same. He's no longer crawling when he comes out of that cocoon. He's flying. He has wings now. He didn't have that before. So his operation is different. His assignment is different, which is to go find other butterflies. Everything is different. He's no longer meant to crawl, but he is meant to fly, to soar, to be free. And so I just want to tell somebody, continue on with the process. Even as I encourage myself, continue with the process. You cannot afford to shrink back. You cannot afford to go back. And so there may come a time whenever you're around people who knew you before your change and your transformation took place, before you decided in your mind and within your heart that you are going to be something different, that you're going to allow God to do something new in you, that a change is going to take place within you. They're going to not understand it. And some people are open to it. Like they eventually are like, okay, let me find out and wait and see what this is about. But some people, they may criticize you. They may feel like, that you're trying to be better than them, or they may think you may got like this big head. But sometimes that's not the case. It's never the case whenever you're trying to change for the good and for the better, especially if God is in the process. No, you're embracing who you've always been. Maybe you are operating in a false identity before. And so sometimes when you're around those people who identified you as who you were before, it could come off as you being misunderstood and sometimes even mishandled, because they may try to approach you based off of who you were before. But with who you are becoming, that also comes with, new boundaries, that comes with new relationships. Sometimes we ask for that and sometimes we don't. It's just a part of the process. Not everybody can go with you in who you are becoming. And so again, that comes with new relationships, that comes with new positions, new assignments. Everything is completely new. And so I just want to tell somebody, you don't have to be apologetic in who you are authentically and who you are really becoming, the original version of yourself that God has always saw you to be, even before you were in the mother's womb. You don't have to apologize for that. You don't have to tell people, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm not like that anymore. You don't have to even try to fit back into that person before. You're not the same person. And even sometimes when you try to fit back into that old person, it doesn't work. And even if you do, if it does work, you're not satisfied with where you are because you've experienced and you've tasted something new. That change inside of you has happened. It's taken place, whether people see it or not. Because just like the caterpillar who transforms into the butterfly, sometimes that transformation, it takes a while. That change, it doesn't happen so quickly. That caterpillar is in the cocoon for a while. And so just like for you, you may be in the middle middle of your process. And so it may look like you're the same person. You may even be talking the same for a little bit, but something inside of you is taking place. A change has taken place. You have accepted this new person. And so maybe for you, that change will be reflected on the outside in a slow process. Maybe it doesn't happen overnight. For some people, there's an automatic change. They're able to cut off things. They're able to embrace new things. They look different. They dress different. They talk different. But for some people, it's a slower process, and that's okay too. It still doesn't mean that that change has not taken place on the inside of you. Maybe it takes a while for that to show up. And, sometimes even people think like you were just like that yesterday, but no, maybe that change actually started a year ago. But maybe something has happened and you're like, no, I'm embracing this fully. Maybe you've stepped in a little bit into who you are supposed to be. Maybe you've stepped in a little bit into the process that God is calling you to, but you haven't decided to fully go all the way in. And when you do go all the way in, people think, where did this come from? Well, maybe it's always been in there. Maybe it's always been in the work. And so I just want to encourage somebody today that, again, you can embrace and no longer shrink back to who you were. You can embrace the new you. You can accept the change. You can accept the call to be all that God has called you to be. You owe that to yourself. You owe that to those you're assigned to. You owe that. You are that valuable. Your life is that valuable, and it's that precious to where every decision that you make, how you operate, is important to God. You want to become that best version of yourself. You want to accept it. You have the permission to accept that change. You have permission to change. You have permission to change your mind. I don't care what mistakes you've made today, last night, yesterday. You have permission to change and to evolve and to grow. And you shouldn't let anybody make you feel bad about that. You shouldn't be apologetic for that. Be unapologetic to what you have decided and what you know is true to who you really are and who you want to become. But most importantly, there's somebody that you have not seen that you need to see, you need to meet. And so I just want to invite you to continue along this journey with me as we talk about more of what it looks like to become all that God has called you to be. Thank you so much for joining in. And so I talk about that a little bit more in my ebook, Simply Embrace for the Becoming Woman, which again, you can find on my website, www.brittanyWrivers.com. I actually have a chapter called No Shrinking Back that kind of touches this again about not shrinking back and who God has called you to be, because it's one thing to want to become and want that change, but it's another thing to refuse and reject that process that God is calling you to. And so thank you so much for joining. I hope you're able to come back and join me for another episode.